Okay, we are actually live, and tonight's topic is going to be about Linux phones and if Linux phones are safe or not, based on some of the stuff that I've been talking about in my last video. So, I just want to make sure we cover this. Hello, James Mason Fish. Hold on, I'm going to look in the different screen here. Chewy, Locudos, Eddie Ordaz, Iron Fist, Alvaro Lacerda, and Mr. Nobody, and I'm sure entire Myers in there somewhere at the very beginning. Nemo, Great Gold, Yukokwi, whatever. Stone Dog, Mike L1. Hey, Mike, Starlight. Okay, guys, so the usual format is I'm going to talk for a few minutes, so I'm not going to focus on your comments for now, and then for most of the broadcast I will focus on your comments, but I want to just put in the important content at the beginning so people who don't want to watch the whole thing can kind of get the gist of it, and then you can go ask me lots of questions afterwards until we have about an hour and a half. So that's our time limit. It's an hour and a half in order for people to stop complaining about my too long of a video. So back when I was doing this on Periscope days, I was doing 3-hour videos, and people can ask me questions all night. And Phone Man for Buju, you would be surprised about some of the comments I get on YouTube about some people who are, actually act like they're very smart. And they actually will insert a comment and make you think they actually know what they're talking about, and then you actually start thinking, maybe maybe you just read a book. I don't think you actually understand what you're talking about. So some of these comments, like I got another one today from this guy that made a comment about private DNS. It's like, oh, private DNS is such and such. It's like, suck. Totally not understanding the technology, totally not understanding it from a privacy point of view. You go for the Google hype, and you think everything is good because Google is touting it. And I'm telling you right now that you can't look at it from their point of view. You got to look at it from our point of view, which is privacy, and often that is different. That is different. Okay, so our topic tonight is going to be about Linux phones. Now, I actually, I made a video about sensors and the danger with sensors, and somebody made a comment on my on the video and said, "Oh, that's why I'm waiting for my Linux phone." And the assumption is that if you go with a Linux phone, then suddenly it's going to be safe. Well, unfortunately, that is not the case. So your Linux phone is in as much danger as an Android phone, as an iOS phone. In fact, probably worse. And partly the reason I'm doing this broadcast tonight, or this discussion for the first few minutes, is so that the people from Ubuntu Touch, the people from Fosh, Purism and all that, they listen in and maybe pick up a few things. And this is very easy to do, guys. Very easy to do. But at the moment, your zucking Linux phones are not safe. They are not safe. Particularly when we're talking about sensors. So as I discussed in my video, the problem with the sensors, guys, is that when you have a gyroscope, accelerometer, magnetometer sensor on the phone, if you let that sample, or not sample, but collect data over an extended period of time, that can actually track your every move. It can do dead reckoning. It can find what you're doing all day, even without a GPS position, as long as you have some sort of starting point. So you can be mapped, that can be fingerprinted to be a unique behavior, that can be very dangerous. And unfortunately, actually, guys, on a Linux phone, access to the sensors is not limited. As it turns out, on Android 9 and 10, Android 9 and 10 actually does not allow the sensors to work in the background. They only can be used in the foreground. unless you have physical activity permissions, in which case then it can work in the background. So the problem here is that on Linux, it doesn't have that kind of permission tracking on there. There's actually no permissions for sensors. Now, this is not a big deal. Anybody who knows Linux can go in there and just zucking turn off the driver. Okay, but who's going to be doing that if you're going to be selling phone OSs? If it's a phone OS, guys, the operating system must allow the user to turn off the sensors. You must allow a way to turn off the sensors or allow its use only in the background. Okay? So that is not in existence today on a Linux phone. That means a Librem 5, a Pine phone, Pine 64, any phone running Ubuntu Touch, none of this are currently safe. None from the sensors. Now, apparently some versions of the browser can even access the sensors. I don't actually understand how that's snuck in there, but some browsers can allow the sensor. Depends on when it was updated. Newer versions of Chrome and Firefox do not allow the sensors to get activated by JavaScript, but some of the browsers used in some of the Linux distributions for a phone have not been updated, so they are actually quite dangerous. So this is very, very worrisome, guys, that we have the assumption that just because it's a Linux phone that it's safer. Now let me just make sure you understand this. Yes, a Linux phone is absolutely safe from Google and Apple and any of those entities spying on you, because obviously there's no central authority tracking the every move of the phone. However, it doesn't prevent a bad player from doing browser fingerprinting and so on, especially using the sensors. So this is a danger that is easily fixed. It doesn't take much time to do this, guys. Obviously, when I receive an Ubuntu Touch phone and so on, I could just turn off the sensors. I'll find the driver for it and then just turn off the sensor, and then I'll be good to go for myself. But there should be a switch so that if you want to use the sensor, you can do so. For the most part, those of us who use Ubuntu Touch probably do not have any intent of ever having those sensors work. So I'd rather have the sensors off at all times by default. So if I don't get a response that Ubuntu Touch is going to, or Phosh, the whoever is making whatever version of Phosh from Purism, if they don't actually put a option in the settings to turn off sensors, then we're going to have to delete the driver or disable the driver directly, from the Linux distribution. And fortunately, you can do that. You can do that in Linux. You don't have to talk to the manufacturer. You don't have to go, look in some hidden area that's locked down. It is not locked down in Linux, so I can go and do that. So yes, so you can delete the sensor manually if you know where the sensor is. So we can find out, I don't know what it is right offhand, but we can find out what the accelerometer, gyroscope, magnetometer sensor is and disable the driver to that. The other thing is, one of the things that is different is when you're running a Linux phone in comparison to, let's say, an Android and even a de-Googled phone. As you know, I talk about de-Googled phones, and I've said that Linux phones are even safer, but in a sense it is not. It depends. From Google, obviously a Linux phone is absolutely safe because there's no micro G, no Aurora. It doesn't have any connection with Google at all. There's no notifications. There is absolutely no connection between a Linux phone like, let's say, Ubuntu Touch and Google. So from that point, it is safe. However, it is not as safe from a cybersecurity point of view compared to, let's say, an Android 10 that has things like verified boot, SE Linux. You know what SE Linux does? It's one of these things. SE Linux, by the way, is a permissions system built into to the file system of every Android. And what it does is allows the Android to say, okay, these apps don't get these kinds of permissions, and they have to do things within their scope. And if they do something outside of the scope of their normal behavior, then it will flag it, and then an exception will be made by the protecting framework, which is SE Linux. SE Linux does not exist on a standard Linux install on a phone, and so it doesn't have that kind of protection. So the problem is a bad app. If you go to if you go look at Ubuntu Touch, for example, most of the apps are web apps. But if you actually make a real app that has access to the OS in a full way, you can actually do anything. I mean, you can be a bad player on Linux, just as you can be on Android. The problem is on Linux, you have full permission. You can do anything. So, for example, I made a cybersecurity app to attack people on the network, and and yes, you can run that on Linux. You can run that on a Linux phone. Is that a good thing? Some people will consider that to be kind of an aggressive app, and may say, well, that's something we should block. But there's no one to block it on Linux, because Linux it's kind of permissionless. There's no one deciding for you. So some of these things have to be built in to the operating system itself. Some sort of permission system. For example, SE Linux is not placed on any of the OSs for Pine 64 or even a Librem 5. So somebody could basically expose the phone and do some bad things on there. But yes, absolutely, there's no Google in there. So if you're saying, is my phone safe from Google if I'm using Linux? Absolutely yes. Yes. Are you safe from any kind of tracking by most parties? No, because the sensors. Once they address the sensors, then yes. However, a Linux phone is still more hackable currently than an Android phone. An Android phone is more hardened. An iOS phone is even more hardened than that. So my problem with iOS is not that the phone isn't hardened. It is. It's actually more hardened than Android. The problem is I don't trust Apple. So you're basically saying, yes, it's pretty hardened against everyone else, but you're saying you trust Apple with your data. I'd rather not trust anyone with my data. I'd rather have no data at all on the phone. So in reality, at the moment, if you have to think about it in kind of a big picture sense, you trust Apple. I don't trust fucking Apple. In a big picture sense, what am I saying? Am I discouraging you from getting a Linux phone? No, I think that the developers of the Linux OSs like Ubuntu Touch and so on can take what I say, and some of these are fairly easy changes to make. They're not like earth shattering to make a switch for a sensor, especially since we know what the sensor is, and even if we can't do that, we can probably manually disable the sensor just by going in as root and doing stuff in there. The only problem is the next update will override it. So that's why it has to be at the OS level rather than us trying to tweak it on our own. Yes, you can. On a Linux phone, you can say, well, I don't like what the developers of Linux have done. Of the OS, like Ubuntu Touch, and so I'm going to modify it myself. So I've done that. I've made modifications in my own personal version of Ubuntu Touch when I was using it. I don't use Ubuntu Touch today because I've shifted to a de-Googled phone, just from practicality reason. One of the main problems I have with Ubuntu Touch is the lack of Bluetooth. So that kind of makes it kind of impossible to use because in California you can't talk in a car without Bluetooth. I mean, they're going to go give you a ticket. So for that reason, it's just impractical for me. I can't, I got to have Bluetooth in the car. So functionally, a de-Googled phone is much more functional than an Ubuntu Touch, just because it has, all of these other apps that you can use. The only problem that exists on a Google phone is the Google connection, but as you know, we've terminated that with the Google phone. So there's no Google on there. So for that reason, at the moment, it seems to me that the Google phone is actually a little safer and more practical because there are very few negatives at the moment with a de-Googled phone. Not all apps work. 90% of the apps do work. But remember, if you install an app from Google Play, then you introduce the possibility of some spying stuff. So, for example, if you install an app from Google Play that has physical activity tracking, then it could turn on the sensors and can track you outside of what you expected the app to do. So a physical fitness app can track you by location, even though it has nothing to do with that. Maybe it's free and they're selling their services. So you actually don't know this. Same with a game. So you can have a game that says we need physical activity sensors because we want to know what you're doing with the phone physically, and that kind of game might on the side be tracking your data because of the unique capabilities of sensors. So sensors are a big issue, and they're kind of mitigated on Android, but they are not mitigated at all on any of the Linux distributions. So guys in the Linux phone world, Ubuntu Touch, all the people, Sailfish, all the guys developing OSs for a Linux phone, Pine 64, Pine phone, and so on. Please disable the sensors or allow a user to disable the sensor, or even in the future allow it to be disabled by app. Even if you don't disable it by app right now, all you need is just a simple switch, which should be fairly easy to do because we already know all we have to do is turn off the driver right at the driver level. We just need some GUI to switch it and have that to be part of the OS, so the setting can be stored in the data folder, in the data directory, so we don't have to worry about it on the air update. So that's my recommendation on Linux. I hope somebody takes that recommendation and implements it. It's not very difficult to do, but it's very dangerous to let those sensors run unabated without any kind of control, because they can actually track you. As somebody proved, you can actually capture a voice from the test was done on the Linux phone, actually. I think they did it on Fosh. So they were able to actually capture voice from the sensors, from the gyroscope accelerometer sensor. So it's very, very scary. So it's actually the Linux phone that's one of the main targets of this, so be careful. Okay, so I'm going to switch now to Q&A, and you can ask me anything, and I'm going to go read your comments and see if I missed anything here. Please ask the comments again. I have tape on my phone camera, but it falls off once in a while. I can't trust any smartwatch anymore. You have tape on your camera. Now, fortunately, one of the things that is, let's talk Android here and iOS. Fortunately, as I found out, the camera cannot work in the background now on new versions of iOS and Android. So the camera cannot work in the background. If they don't have that kind of permission, which they don't, to work in the background, then those sensors don't actually work. So they can't actually capture you unless they force an app to work in the foreground. So only an app in the foreground can activate the camera. So things are actually improving on that side. So that's actually good. But it doesn't stop Google and Apple from doing things that still track our activity. And that's what pisses me off, is we're so focused on the cybersecurity stuff that we actually forget that Apple and Google themselves have so much data on each one of us. Is the Pine phone 4G LTE because T-Mobile and ATE will be shutting down 3G in 18 months. T-Mobile is not shutting down 3G yet. AT&T announced that a while back, yeah. T-Mobile probably not yet, but they're close. No, a Pine phone is LTE. It's in its international bands. It has most of the bands. They actually have two kinds of broadband modems. They are LTE. The main thing that is not yet done on a Pine phone, at least from an Ubuntu Touch, actually for most of the OSs, is that the power management is not yet optimized. So 6 hours is still the expectation of lifespan of the phone, and secondly, the camera doesn't work yet. So those are the two big issues, and then clean up on the rest of them just for stability. But those are the main issues on the Pine phone right now as it relates to being a daily driver. So the power management is fairly serious, because if the power management were running, I myself can install other kinds of applications. On a Pine phone, for example, I can use it as an LTE router. It's an inexpensive LTE router, but it's not that inexpensive if it's going to run out of power in 6 hours. Can you get an Android Auto working on a de-Googled phone? What is Android Auto? Could you tell me what Android Auto is? Is that... Oh, you mean the car interface. See, I don't use that. So, can you get Android Auto working on a de-Googled phone? Not sure. You got to try it. I haven't tried it because I don't have a car that does that. But yeah, it could. 90% of the apps do work. Rob recommends only 5G de-Googled phones. What the zuck are you talking about? By the way, fortunately, a lot of the statements about 5G, somebody said, oh, T-Mobile is going 5G. These are not really 5G yet. I got to wait for an actual 5G. 5G is in the high gigahertz range, like 20 gigahertz and above on the spectrum, and most of them are still using the same bands in the 800 range, and they're using what do you call this, where beamforming on the lower ranges, which increases the signal, but they're still not using the actual true 5G. So they're just pieces of 5G technology, but they're not completely 5G. 5G includes beamforming plus the high frequency in the 20 gigahertz and above, 20 to 40 gigahertz. The main issue that aside from the health issues that is unknown, the main problem with 5G, guys, is the spying aspect of that. You see, 5G actually can pinpoint you because of the beamforming. It can actually aim at you directly. So currently, if you have a LTE phone, the carrier can only say that you're near such and such a tower. But with 5G, they can actually say you're over there, and it can actually point an arrow to your line of sight to where you are. So that's kind of problematic, because from a privacy point of view, the technologies that worry me that relate to this are IPv6 and 5G. These two technologies are really geared for knowing your exact location, often within inches. No more six ducking feet. We're talking about inches here. So when the beam forms and points at you, it will know exactly where you are. So that kind of worries me. And every person using the phone will have a beam, and that's how they increase the signal, is by doing a beam connection between you and the cell tower. So, okay, I leave my phone on my bed. The next thing you know, the tape is gone. Fish, somebody is coming into your bedroom and taking your tape. Hello, Carrie Bond. Did I read that right? Do you think people will ever be paid for the data they give? Hell no. I'll ask you another question if I have to. I'm glad you admit that you don't pretend to know stuff. You're not a victim of Dunning Kruger then. Oh, you're talking to Kelly Miller. Current most secure phone, looking to switch. So at the moment, because of the sensor issue, got a focus issue here. At the moment, I'm going to have to say that until the sensor issue is fixed, then an Android, the Google Android is going to be safer. The Google Android is going to be safer right now. So I hope this changes. And there's a thank you. Is that TCAL? Oh, one CEO King. One CEO King. Thank you so much. The problem, aside from the sensors, it's a device security issue that's fairly weak on a Linux phone. It's, for the kind of uses that we want to use it for, which is for privacy, we don't really care so much because we're not putting content on the phone. So I'm not so worried about device security in the same way. But the fact of the matter is that, it is much easier to insert malware on a Linux phone than it is on a Android AOSP phone. So with AOSP de-Googled, the evil influence of Google is not in there anymore. So what's left is just the whatever standard security there is in Android, which actually isn't bad, especially at Android 10. So Android 10, which is even has some tools in there to block device fingerprinting, which is actually pretty good. So in that sense, you don't find the device fingerprinting things on Linux, but you could put it on there. So it's not something we expect to experience on a Linux phone. And yes, if you know what you're doing, you can actually disable all of that manually on a Linux phone. But as far as somebody who's not into the details of how to tweak a Linux phone, to be honest, a de-Googled phone is currently safer. So there's a few things that they have to do on a Linux phone to make that safer. And I could probably do it on my own phone. Let's say I have Fosh on my phone, and somebody said, "Well, can you harden this in some way?" And you probably could. You could load it. You can encrypt it. You can put any number of things on there. You can disable sensors that you want. You could do it, but it's not built in at the moment. So for a standard user, a de-Googled phone is a little bit easier to deal with because it's already made to protect you. Again, I want to just caution you. One of the things you want to avoid as a habit is to rely on your phone as a place to store important data. This is why I don't worry about this so much, because the intent is that to change your habits to not rely on the phone, because it's our reliance on the phone that's put all the sensors in there and made it so vulnerable right now. So when somebody turns the phone from Android to Linux just by installing something like, say, on a Nexus 5, it doesn't eliminate the sensors that still got installed there from the original Android. So it's still there. On a Pine phone, the sensors or whatever it came with on Linux is going to be there. So yes, you do have to worry about those. And at the moment, the Google phone, at the moment, this can easily change. Like I said, if the people at Ubuntu Touch listen to me, and they could say, okay, we'll work on this, and shortly, they can fix this, or even do a temporary fix to get rid of the sensors. So we just have to turn off the sensors. The only way to be 100% secure is to go off the grid. Jackson Wilson. You know what, Jackson Wilson? I was just thinking to myself, I as you all know, I have a boat, and my boat could actually go off the grid. And actually, I wanted to install like solar panels, and I already put lithium-ion batteries on it, and so it actually doesn't need much. I just need solar panels. I can even put a temporary one, just to see if I can go, it's it's on dock power, and I don't need solar because I have dock power. But to get it ready, all I have to do is attach some a solar controller, charge controller, and some solar panels, and I'm set to go, and I can be off grid. So I don't know if anybody's interested in doing that from a video point of view, but it interests me. So it interests me because it's part of my belief system. Let's see. Good to know about camera. The Russians because were found out because of physical fitness tracking. Really? No, actually, they were finding out that they were, where the U.S. soldiers were active doing exercise because they were all wearing Fitbit. Same thing. So very scary, this physical activity sensor. The gyroscope, accelerometer, magnetometer. So thank you, King Frost Sound Warrior. Are you a gook? Jackman, do you even know the history? I'll tell you a little story. Jackman. I used to live in Wisconsin, and so I was young, I went to this bar, and this kind of, hick-looking guy, blonde, stepped up to me with his beer and said, "I hate gooks. I've killed a few." Yep. Good old Wisconsin. There you go. There you go, guys. First of all, gook. There's you're all gooks. There's two kinds of gooks. It's Hanguk and Miguk. Now, I'm not Korean, but I happen to know that. So Hanguk is American. Miguk is Korean. So Guk means it's like your nationality. So Miguk, Hanguk. So and then during the Korean War, the soldiers just said, "We're gonna just call you all Gooks," and they were actually referring to the Koreans as Gooks, and which is incorrect because I already explained, Miguk, Hanguk. So it's considered a very offensive, racial slur. And then they used it in Vietnam. They call all the Asians in Vietnam Gooks. So I'm going to tell you something, Jackman. Zuck you, mother zucker. So anyway, Linux is the least secure operating system, I think. And that's a good point, Hey You. And I want to make it clear that from my point of view, it's kind of two separate animals here. What does secure mean to you, Hey You? What is the point of having a secure? Let's talk about a regular Android phone from Google. What is the point of having a secure Android phone if Google is going to take everything you do on the phone, including device fingerprinting, all your locations and everything you do, and store it on their Zucking servers? So you can have the Zucking most secure iPhone and Android phone. If you're going to take my data, then I say, Zuck you. That is not the safe phone for me. I don't really care about the security in the phone. I'll just physically watch my phone. I'm going to make sure nobody takes it. Then I'm going to be secure. Okay, I'll just make sure physically I don't take this. I don't want the bigger problem, which is when I'm not doing anything, it's taking my data. That's what bugs me. Now, having said that, what is the difference between a Android iOS phone versus, let's say, a Linux phone? The difference is on the cybersecurity side from getting your phone stolen. If somebody takes your phone, it should be easy to break into a Linux phone. Presumably you don't have any data on it anyway, but it should be easy to break into a Linux phone if somebody steals your phone compared to Apple and Android. Now, let me just explain kind of the difference here. Philosophically, if your intent is to store your nude photos on your Android and iOS, I understand you need zucking security on your phone because you don't want your zucking naked selfies to go out on the internet because that's what you put on a phone. But to me, that's stupid anyway. Okay, if you're of that belief, then yes, you don't get a Linux phone. You should get a secure Android and iOS, because if you're, and maybe even more secure on iOS, if that's what you want to do. If you want to keep your zucking private data on your phone, then you will be zucked, but that's up to you. You can do that. And yes, if somebody steals your phone, they're not going to be able to break in because, there's a lot of security features that prevent somebody from taking the data off an existing phone. So the two sides, there's the stuff you put in there that you want to lock up. Yes, Android and iOS are better at that. Then the other side is the stuff you didn't tell anybody to take, and they're going to take anyway. Like everything from contact tracing to all of your locations and all of your activities that this is tracking, plus device fingerprinting and so on. Hate that. Because especially since the data is centralized. So when somebody says that a Linux phone is less secure than an Android phone, again, think about your intent. What for what purpose? If you're gonna use this for your naked pics, yes, don't use a Linux phone. Okay, but in my mind, I'd rather deal with something that I know. I know how the Linux phone works. I know I can go in there and see what it's doing. It's not going to hide anything from me because it can't, because it's Linux. Android will hide things from me, so I got to trust the OEM to make sure that they don't do any sneaky stuff in the OEM areas, to make sure they don't do sneaky stuff in some side apps where we don't have source code for, and sneaky stuff with some sensors and devices and broadband modems that I don't have control over. Whereas I have control over it on Linux. For example, on a Linux phone, there is a way, from software at least, to shut it down. Whereas that is very difficult to do on an Android, since they don't give you a facility to do it directly. So for that reason, be careful with your analysis of this. I just want to make it clear that this is kind of an apples and oranges story, and it's sometimes a debate between the two sides of cybersecurity versus privacy. They're not always the same. Simo La Beats. Am I Japanese? No, I'm not Japanese. I mean, I've said this many times. I'm ethnically, I'm Filipino. I'm American, though. Should I get a Pine phone? I would say at the moment, not yet. Probably not yet. You should get a Pine phone if you want to experiment, but if you want to go production and daily driver stuff, not yet. It's not there yet. And I just told you about some issues with the security. So at the moment, the Google phone is safer. Does T-Mobile still have 2G service? I think that's probably gone. The 2G is probably gone. 3G is still. 2G may have expired just like recently. Maybe 2G expired in 2019. I can't remember exactly. 3G is still running. Your views on antivirus. I have a video on that. Do not put an antivirus anywhere. No, you don't need an antivirus. If you want me to do a full-scale video about that again, there's an old one there, but just so you understand, the CIA, the NSA said don't use an antivirus because they can hack into it. So why would I give somebody a chance to hack into my computer through the antivirus? I'd rather not have it, because it opens up a entry point that it doesn't have before. Android Auto and Apple CarPlay are awesome. Well, I don't know. I don't use that. I wonder who the three people are who gave this a thumbs down. Probably the same people who don't like my commentary on IPv6 and all that. So probably the same bunch. They just come in here and troll. But they should speak up and troll in person. So if you're going to troll, just troll because you think you're too smart. So some people are like, they don't acknowledge that there's a different point of view. So, like last week, as you know, I did a video on IPv6, and then these people argued with me after the video, after the Friday live stream, because I wanted them to come in here live and argue with me right here, and they didn't do that. And then I heard the argument, and then once I heard the argument, and I said, "Oh my gosh, you truly are, you act like you all know what you're talking about." And then I understood now that they really didn't. They have some textbook knowledge, and they think I don't know anything. And I've been in the internet before many of you were even born. Zach, I was writing my own software, internet software, before many of you were born. So, and somebody said, "Well, you don't know anything about routing." Yeah, maybe I don't, but I was doing routing on my goodness, it was dial-up, pre-internet, and I was doing routing pre-internet. Okay, so I guess I don't know anything, but yeah, there could be some new stuff, but that's not the point. What I sense was that they totally missed the point of what I was trying to say, because they don't understand things like device fingerprinting, how you can be fingerprinted with an identifier on your phone, and how that's important, because some people don't think that's important. In which case, if you don't think that's important, then you're in the wrong channel. So commenting about IPv6 without understanding the big picture of how data is collected is kind of a useless argument, because I'm not going to pay attention to you. If you don't understand the big picture of how your data is stolen and collected and by central authorities, central parties, then you don't understand. And some of you are going to go defend things like private DNS and say, "But private DNS encrypts my DNS." And it's like, yes, it encrypts it to the centralized party so that one party can see it with your real IP address. And it's like, why are you giving that kind of information to one party? And somebody will say, "Well, I don't use Google, I use Cloudflare." Okay, so now we're saying we're going to centralize it in two entities, Cloudflare and Google, and that's a good thing. Why would that be a good thing? But right now, when you use a VPN, your DNS is completely untraceable. It's just mixed in with thousands of people doing the same thing, and there's no IP address because it's a VPN. So there's really nothing they can get from it. There's no real information that's useful when you're already on a VPN. So why are we centralizing this kind of data? I don't want centralized data of any sort. That's one of the advantages of Linux. Somebody said keep phones in a lead box and put a Faraday bag and so on. And I already said, if the sensor's active on the phone, be it a Linux phone, a Android phone with physical activity permissions, you actually will still be traced, because it just does move by gyro accelerometer. You could put it in a Faraday bag, it would still detect all that. A Faraday bag is not going to stop the sensor. Okay, so the real solution is turn the zucking thing off. Just turn it off. So, UFC tomorrow. I don't watch UFC. Can you get Google Map working on a de-Googled phone? You don't need Google Map. Use OpenStreetMaps. It's a pretty good app, actually. Osman. It's a very good app. It actually has a good interface, and it works very well, and you do not need Google Maps. What phone is the best choice right now? My budget is high. You can. The high end is probably one of the high end Pixels with Graphene OS, which I don't sell, and then the ones I sell are all reasonably priced at in the under $300. So all of the ones that I sell are under 300. Like the G7 is $299, the G7 Play is $269. So that's my target price because you may want more than one. A lot of people buy multiple phones. They change the phones for their entire family to get de-googled to actually drop all the old phones. It's priced that you can actually do that. You can actually get 4 phones and have many people buy multiple phones. If you're going to use a graphene OS, it's kind of expensive. You're talking $600-700 for the phone. So that's fine, but I'm not sure people have the budget for that. So, yeah, and graphene OS is fine. I'm all for it if you can afford that. I just haven't focused on that because it's hard to. It's kind of risky for me because you get a phone for graphene. I got a Pixel 3, paid $200+ for it. And then, in order for me to make money to resell it, I have to add the time that I put into it. And guess what happens? I could not flash it. The graphene instruction didn't work. So I couldn't flash the phone, and there you go. Now I wasted money on the Pixel 3. So that's the danger with that. So I don't want to have high-priced phones currently because of that. Can you de-Google it? No, I cannot de-Google an SD. You asked me that before, Mike. I bought an iOS last year. I understand that it can be tracked, but I have privacy apps. That doesn't do anything. You can have all the privacy apps you want. Where does one purchase a de-Google phone? You go to my to Brax.me, and it's on the store on Brax.me. It's a website or app. Brax.me. Use a Faraday bag doesn't help you if you have a sensor active. So you can put a Linux phone in a Faraday bag and it will still track your location by dead reckoning through the sensor. So the sensor has to be turned off. So thank you, Twitty. By the way, Twitty, I have an update on the radar. So if you want it rushed, I'll give you a download so you can flash a new SD card. Otherwise, I'll just send you new SD cards for the Brax radar because I made a change. Okay, invite me to your boat. Yeah, fly over. Chrome OS is in guest mode, doesn't save any info in case track. Chrome OS, suck! You're actually promoting Chrome OS. Hey, you. Suck! Chrome OS is one of the best ways to spy on our kids. They don't even know that location tracking is on by default. It actually, if you give it permission for location, it doesn't actually flag you ever again. So if your kid ever used location once, then your kid's actions, underage kids, are being tracked with potentially websites tracking their position within 6 zucking feet on zucking Chrome OS. Zucked up, and every student has it. From Alaska. Hello, Beach Bum. They changed your name, Beach Bum. Now I'm confused. Beach Bum. What other name are you using now? The problem is you guys follow my advice on security, but I can't remember. Thank you for the salmon, by the way, Beach Bum. I want a phone that no one can track me with. Yes, at the moment, I'm going to say de-Googled phone today. This can change, but at the moment, I would say because of the sensor issue, a de-Googled phone wins at the moment. I used to say that Linux phones win. In fact, I have a video on that. And it does win from a Google connection point of view, but with the sensor issue, that really worries me. The sensor is an issue right now. In Wisconsin, what is in Wisconsin? My store in Wisconsin. Wisconsin is Islamic now? We're not all like that in Wisconsin. Come on, Leroy, I know that. This is just one single idiot. And by the way, Leroy, when I was in Wisconsin, and that event happened, I had lots of friends there, so they all backed me up. So no, I know that, Leroy. It's just some weirdos. A few. I mean, you know, you still have them anywhere. Uh, so you have them everywhere. I'm very behind in the comments here. Apparently, I'm watching this in a virtual machine. Really. Let's see. Wow, I'm so way behind in the comments. It appears slow and low. Thank you. No, I don't use search browsers. I just use books. If it's on your phone, it's not private. Yeah, but you're the one who wanted Chrome OS. Okay, my goodness, I'm so far behind. I'm trying to catch up here. I'm gonna have to ignore the best phone for story edgy memes. I guess you can use any phone for that, because that's useless. What nationality am I? My nationality is American. That is my nationality. Now, if you're asking about my ethnic origin, I've already said I'm from the Philippines. My ethnic background is Filipino. Somebody actually, when I said I'm Filipino, somebody actually made a whole bunch of other racial slurs. It's like people in this world, I just don't understand it. Don't understand it. So I don't try to understand. It's like, you know, I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste my time with uninformed and unintelligent people. I like talking to people who are intelligent. It doesn't matter what your race is. If you're intelligent, I enjoy talking to somebody who has intelligence. How to protect your computer from a virus? Email. Block the email. 90% of the viruses come by email, in case you didn't know. Okay? Attachments. Yeah, 90% email. Antivirus is root command to your computer. That's correct, hey you. Might switch to walkie-talkie. Wow, I can't keep your comments. Your wife is Filipino. 4-year-old son is half Filipino. I disabled IPv6 everywhere after your video. Very good idea. But fortunately, IPv6 is not yet routed to the internet today. It's only routed to your ISP. So at the moment, only your ISP can spy on your IPv6. But even that is a problem for me. As it turns out, I use, if you saw one of my videos on the Brax router, I use a Apple Extreme, which is, a fairly old but fast router. And that has no IPv6 whatsoever. Apple Extreme, no IPv6. There's not even a capability for it. It's awesome. Awesome. It's very fast. And you can probably find it used. And, I paid probably, close to $400 for that. And, you probably can buy that cheap, and there's no IPv6. So don't be so excited to get the new tech. You always have to pause and say, what is it about this new tech that I like? Will the Librem 5 ever be done? Well, no, but I'm telling you, even if they get it done, they need to go back to the drawing board and turn off the zucking sensors. So the first thing I do when I get my Librem 5 in 2021, is to turn off the zucking sensors. Good dumb phone. This guy's an honorary Aryan. Sure, we live. Hey man, I'm not racist. If you want me to be Aryan, I'll be Aryan. Whatever. Don't care. I don't react too much to you can't find. Open your eyes, or you can't find your way back from China. It's like, suck you. It's like, is that funny enough for you? I don't really care. So, does it offend me? I don't care. My idea is very simple. Are you smart? Are you smarter than me? Then I respect you. If you're not smart, then you're just full of it. I refuse to use IPv6. If you're going to use IPv6, I'd like to put a layer of protection between me and IPv6 by putting some sort of, I want my IPv6 connection to be in a different country. Then I might, route it and then use NAT64 to go IPv4 to the IPv6 connection. So they, some sort of NAT64 VPN. Because, sorry, not a big fan of that tracking on IPv6. So it's just the way the whole numeric scheme is figured out is just more identifiable than IPv4. So I don't like it. Somebody's going to say, well, but you can do all this. You won't run out of IP addresses like Zoc. That has no benefit to me. It may be beneficial for somebody else, but it doesn't help me. So, can you de-Google a Moto X4? I have no idea. Did he say sweet maps? I don't know what you just said. Turning off won't do it. I'm a E. Wakes up and pings 24/7. Remove battery. Yes! Even by the way, even Snowden knows. Snowden says, how do we really know that a device is off when it's off? Now, let me just tell you the reality of what he's saying. As you know, you think it's off when you see the lock screen. So if somebody pops a lock screen and say turn off, and you press, off, and you say, oh, it turned off. Did you know that somebody could make a fake lock screen so that it can actually blink and act like it's turned off, but it's actually still running? So how do you actually know? It's like some of these login screens, like phishing login screens. If somebody made a login screen that looks like a login screen to your browser, you actually may not know it's not the real login screen. That's the problem with some of this, is that how do you avoid getting tricked? So to a Snowden, he realizes that if somebody gives him a fake screen that says, hey, you're logged off, and by doing that can actually make it think it's logged off, and then it's tracking his every move. So the solution is, for somebody like Snowden, don't carry a Zocking phone. Osman works well offline too. Yes. Hello, Mickey Leaks. Thank you, Mickey Leaks. I'm like trying to catch up on the comments here. Why am I? It went up again. MCE Gear. Thank you. Is there a way good laptop with a removable laptop, no discrete GPU required, but something with an integrated CPU from the last 2 years? Is there a good laptop with a removable laptop? Not sure what you mean by that. What do you mean, like removable keyboard? No discrete GPU required, but something with an integrated CPU from the last 2 years. Not sure what you mean by that. Not sure what you mean. As you know, like a Microsoft Surface has a detachable keyboard. Is that, fortunately, guys, when it comes to desktops, the risk is a lot less because desktops don't have a lot of the sensors tracking GPS. A lot of that does not exist on a desktop. So they used to do a lot of the spying and all that on a computer, but now they focused on the phones. So there's less stuff going on a computer now. Yes, they want to, put a virus on your computer, but aside from forcing you to do factory reset, it doesn't cause much serious damage. Do you know if any progress has been made to get rid of the binary blobs on mobile? No, it's still the same. No, the solution has been to make a hardware switch for the things that still have binary blobs, which is the baseband modem and the Wi-Fi. But in their focus to turn off the binary blobs on the baseband and the Wi-Fi, they actually forgot they left the sensors on. The accelerometer and magnetometer, that needs to be turned off. At least have the user have the ability to turn that off. That is a big danger on any Linux phone right now. Big danger on any Linux phone. Creeper guy. Creeper guy. What a name, Creeper guy. Lots of stupid people. This happens a lot of channels. Who cares? I don't really care. I just ignore the stupid people. Can you de-Google a phone for me that would work with Verizon? A Pixel works with Verizon. So yes, I can. I've been getting like brand new Pixels, which is an old phone, and yet I can get them brand new, and that's what I load something on the OS if you want to work with Verizon. What's the sensor I'm talking about? The accelerometer, gyroscope, and magnetometer, which is in my last video. It can spot your movements. Is Apple's keychain a bad idea for storing passwords? No. Twitty is yes and a no. The keychain itself is not. There's nothing inherently wrong with the keychain because it's protected by your password. The problem, Twitty, is that I don't like it when I go to an app and it autofills the password, like in autofill. So I always worry about anything that has autofill on it because I actually have a hack. I actually made my own hack that can force the screen with autofill in the background where you can't see it and collect the data. If it's not visible to you, you may not know it's autofilling. So for that reason, I don't like autofill. So at least from the browser point of view, don't use autofill on a browser and don't store that kind of stuff in a keychain. In general, a keychain by itself, probably not too much of an issue. So if you want to use keychain, just be careful with, if it's used on the autofill. Do viruses also get introduced by SD card to the phone? Well, you have to modify the SD card. Is Wi-Fi 6 good for privacy? The Wi-Fi 6 itself is not good for privacy, or not good. It has nothing to do with it. The issue is WPA3, see, which is not necessarily in Wi-Fi 6. WPA3 was promised to be in Wi-Fi 6 to provide us with, a safer alternative to WPA, and it's been so full of bugs. The promise has not been there yet. So yes, WPA3 is supported in Windows, and I'm not sure about iOS and Linux. Probably is on the Mac, for example. But the problem with WPA3 is that the hardware themselves, they're not supporting it yet. In fact, I specifically go search for WPA3 compatible routers and I don't find them. And the reason is because there are many bugs with it, and so I'm not sure the bugs have yet been fixed. So until they do that, they don't promise on WPA3. So it's not about Wi-Fi 6 itself. Wi-Fi 6 is mostly about speed. You took that from me, hey you. Forgot to mention, I had a new phone the whole day without SD card and no more games. Well, if you're Linux, I don't use a keychain either. So, hey Rex, greetings. Always watch me on Library first. Yes, I don't do the live streams on Library because it doesn't transfer. So, yeah, it doesn't transfer manually to Library. But welcome to those people on Library who are watching me right now. Thank you. On Library, I'm in number 45 now. I have 12,000 subscribers on Library. 12,000 followers. That's pretty amazing. I mean, I've only been there a few months. Been there a few months, and I'm catching up to other guys who are very well established. To be in the top 45 is pretty good. Even the big players there are only like at 17,000, and I'm already at 12,000. So I'm like moving up fast on library. So thank you so much, guys. That one guy with a mustache. So what's a good way to clean up SD card to make sure nothing introduced? Always have a way to install back from factory. Let's see, is there a non-GSM Verizon phone able to be Googled by you? Yes, it's called a Pixel. Other than that, I can't guarantee anything. Pixel. The problem is Verizon puts a lot of its own limitations. So Verizon's the one setting limits, and that's really irritating. So because of that, it's very hard to be supportive of Verizon. Samantha, that's when somebody gives a super chat. So thank you for those giving super chats. I appreciate it. You're supporting this channel. Those of you who support the channel on Patreon, thank you so much. And those of you who support the channel by buying the products that I sell for your privacy, I appreciate it so much. It's going to sustain this channel. Going to keep it going, guys, because of your support. And I appreciate it. It's very hard to do this. For those of you who don't realize, I've done this for 5 years and with no income and supporting myself solely through my own funds. And I made software and many other things too during this time. And I made no money until recently. So negative cash flow. So it's very difficult. So if you think that you get rich from YouTube, my monthly advertising revenue is $500. So obviously I don't get to survive from the YouTube ads. I survive from you guys purchasing products, the VPN, the Brax router, the Googled Brax phone, and support on Patreon. And sometimes you click on some Amazon links that they give me a couple of bucks for. So, and all of that really helped to support the channel, and I really appreciate it. And so I guess just even buying a product is just really, really helpful. So, you know that I'm working very hard to support you. And, we're just a small company here trying to do this. Is Wi-Fi 6 good for privacy? It doesn't matter. It's not. The issue really is if WPA3 will eventually get sorted out. That is what's good for privacy. WPA3, which is not directly part of Wi-Fi 6. Is the okay? What did I miss here? Windows still has a universal backdoor. You mean IME? IME is not to many of you, and I want to repeat this. IME is not a serious threat to a home computer, because in order to do that, they have to be on your network, because of NAT, you automatically have those ports blocked. The ports for IME are in the 56 something, I forget, but somewhere in the 5,000 range, and they can't access that from the internet. So that is often used to attack you, not attack you, but control your computer in a corporate environment. That's what tech support will do. They can update your computer at night. That's what they intend to do in a corporate environment. That's what IME is for. That doesn't work in a home environment. So you don't have to overreact to that. I know purism pushes the Librem 13 and 15 with the idea that it's safe from IME. But just from a practical point of view, don't be over worried about that unless you're on an open network. If you're in a public network, you need to worry about IME, but otherwise, no. If you're in a public network, be on a VPN, then you won't be on a public network. because the idea is if you're on a public network, then somebody can access the direct port on your computer, but it's not an issue in your home. Which keyboard is best for a mobile device? A keyboard that you do not download. Let's see, what am I missing here? I told you about Faraday bags. You can do all the Faraday bags you want. If the sensor is actively tracking you, the Faraday bag isn't going to help you, because the sensor can track your location and movements inside the Faraday bag, because the sensor is gyroscope, accelerometer, magnetometer is not stopped by a Faraday bag. The AOSP keyboard does not keep your information. That's the only keyboard I recommend, the one you don't download. Whatever's built into the phone, that's the on a Google phone, that is the only one that you should use. Use DuckDuckGo right now. That's good. Do you use a password keeper? I use KeePass. Some people use LastPass. I used to use LastPass, but when it was bought by LogMeIn, which is remote control company that can be used for controlling your computer, I got a little bit worried about LastPass, so I stopped using LastPass. LastPass is very easy to use. In terms of usability, LastPass is very, very easy to use. Much easier to use than KeePass. But I use KeePass because it's open source. So that's what I use, KeePass. Well, you can use Wi-Fi 6 or not. Wi-Fi 6 is it's about speed, for AX. It's not about anything else. What do you think running a Unix VM on Mint is a good option for staying anonymous offline? Yeah, if you think you need to do that. It's kind of overkill. The problem is, people say, well, I'm going to use Unix, and then they can't sustain it because it's so slow with Tor. So I probably would suggest, instead of using Unix, to just use a regular computer and then run a Brax router. The Brax router does SOCKS 5 routing to the VPN, and so it behaves like Unix. That's what Unix does. It takes SOCKS 5 traffic and routes it through Tor. In my case, a VPN is faster. So that's what I do. That's why I do that setup, Brax router on a standard computer, because it emulates Unix. I was a heavy user of Unix for years, but it's slow. So I can't do videos, especially since I'm a YouTuber. It's very hard to do Unix because I got to do a lot of videos. So I got my G7 back from you and got it set up. Hey, James Miller, thank you. Okay, you have interesting content, Brumblepup. Well, subscribe, Brumblepup. Subscribe. I've tried to use a library. I really want to use it, but just haven't found its search interface usable. That is kind of an issue, and also there's a limitation in content. It right now it's kind of a subset. It's kind of specialized. What you find there is good for cryptocurrency and Linux stuff, and for other things it's hard to find. Like I like sailing videos. There are no sailing videos in the library, so that is a negative. It's kind of a specific market right now. But for those interested in Linux videos, there's a lot of them in the library, so it's good for that group. How about IME stuff like in ARM core? There is no IME in ARM, so you don't have to worry about that. There is our IME version in AMD, but ARM cores don't have that. ARM core, you don't have to worry about anything like that in ARM. Thank you, Hameli. Hard to see. It's my eyes are not that good anymore, and it's like this tiny text in here. Whatever happened to Scoper Chat? Kev, that's a funny comment. Why do you care what happened to Scoper Chat? He probably moved to, he was, I think he, when I last contacted him, he moved somewhere. I'm not going to tell you where because I know exactly who he is. So, good programmer. He's a good programmer. if he stayed around, I would have said, maybe we can work together and do some stuff, because he was in the spying business. He was doing like spying software. Do you have a GitHub link for source code to your Brax products? Only the ones that are open source, which are Braxme and some of the stuff I open source. The Brax router uses open source software, and my source code there is completely open on the Brax router. However, it is not free. So although it's open, you can go check it. It's not on GitHub. I don't want anybody to copy it, but it is open. So when you get it, if you want to look at the source code, nothing's going to stop you from looking at the source code. It is not hidden. Okay. Do you know how to bypass DPI firewall? I don't know what DPI is, so I got to learn what that means first. I don't know everything. You can put in any kind of abbreviation in here, and I may not remember what the abbreviation is. Maybe you translate what DPI means, and then maybe I'll know. The newer Intel processors allegedly, Pete, that is not allegedly. No, I guess it is allegedly. Pete, the newer processors for consumer laptops, specifically the things like the 7 Series U, 8850U, 8550U, a lot of the 9s and the 10s that you find on, let's say, a Dell XPS or a HP Spectre X360, Lenovo. Those chips, even a Librem, those chips do not have vPro, which means by default they supposedly do not have the IME software running. However, we don't really know what that means. Is it still on the chip? Could you activate it or not? We don't actually know. But at least I told you, you need two things. You need to have access to the port, which you do not have on a home network, at least from an attacker point of view, and vPro needs to be active. Hello, Joe Smith. Do your phones have warranty? Well, I will warrant my work. If you want me to reinstall the OS on it, I will do so. But I can't, since I just buy the phones and give it to you. The moment I touch the bootloader, the warranty is off on the phone. But they're brand new, so it doesn't really matter. They're brand new phones. But if you drop it, there's nothing I can do. But if let's say that you damage a phone, just get a replacement phone and I'll flash it for you free the second time. So that's okay. Willing to do that. That's part of my warranty. So I'll repeat the work for you for free if I have to. But I can't warrant a hardware that I don't make. I don't make the hardware. Thank you for all the super chats, guys. So for all those giving the super chats, I appreciate it. Okay, I guess we're running out of time here. So Damien White, thank you. Thank you, Damien White. How do we know your VPN is not spying on us? You can audit it if you want. Tell me you want to visit, and then you can go look at it. I use the same VPN. So if the VPN is logging, it has to log me too, since I use the same one. So I certainly don't want to get logged. So, okay. So that is the insurance that I certainly don't want it to do things to me. Since I use it, in fact, I use it primarily for myself initially. So, but that's kind of a stupid question, because how do you know that any VPN is not spying on you? To be honest with you, it's all about trust. So some of you say, well, how do we trust you? And then I say, well, you mean you trust NordVPN? Who is NordVPN? Have you met Mr. Nord? Have you met Mr. PIA? Is there a Mr. PIA? These are corporate entities. Like Nord is owned by a Lithuanian company that on the side does data collection. Same with the company that owns PIA. These are like owned by big companies now doing data collection. And you're saying, we don't trust you, Rob. Even though you're the privacy guy, we don't trust you. We're going to trust PIA and NOR because sounds good. So come on. Here you're talking to a real person. So if I ever spy on you, and by the way, I've run BraxMe for many years now, and has anyone ever been spied on BraxMe? Has anyone lost data on BraxMe? It's even open source. So, and people say, well, we don't trust you. Well, instead of saying that, just come back and with some actual accusations if your data has actually ever been lost. No one has ever lost data on BraxMe. No one. It's never been hacked either. Now, maybe somebody will say, well, nobody cares about it, so no one will hack it. But I actually run some pretty heavy-duty hacking things on it, and it's always passed. So I've always made sure that it's up to date. Somebody actually made a comment and said, oh, but you are not using supported formats. What do you say? I know exactly what the guy was saying because I use PHP, and certain things that they used to do back when I was writing it, they don't do anymore because they learned to do it differently because they found a hole. They don't realize though, because they're not smart enough to understand the source code, that I do my own mitigations that have nothing to do with anybody else. So I don't need to rely on other comments, like somebody probably said, look, your system variables, you don't pre-process them. Wrong. Of course I pre-process system variables. You just don't know where it's done. So don't assume that you don't know that you know anything if you don't know what I do. So I've only been programming for probably older than many of you are in age. So I've been programming for a long time. So I'm no dummy. And when I do programming, it's not like I've been using COBOL since whenever. I'm using whatever the most advanced language is available at the moment. I was a C programmer for decades. So, I certainly know how to program because, if you know how to do it in C, then you can do anything. So, I subscribed a while back. Thank you, Brumble Pup. If I have documents, should I go send it through Signal? Generally, my problem with Signal is that the metadata for your phone number. Anybody who uses Signal, I get a notification that such and such joined Signal, and I don't like that because it uses phone numbers. Other than that, it's okay. It's actually probably the best option right now for voice over IP. So, and instead of FaceTime, use Signal instead of relying on Zoom and any of this zucking stuff on the internet, which are not safe. Why don't you use Signal for voice over IP with two people? Signal's pretty good for that. Again, I use it with people I know. If I don't know who you are, I'm not going to do Signal with you. But I'll use Signal with people I know. Like if somebody from my family wants to talk to me in Signal, I will. It's safe for that. That's what it's good for. What are your ideas about the Pine phone? And I already spent so much time saying that at the beginning. You might have already been over this. Oh yeah, you may want to watch the beginning part because I talked a lot about that. Let's see. Goodness, we're like so many comments. Guys, it's funny, I can't keep up with comments anymore. How do we buy your products without exposing our identities? You can buy with Amazon gift cards. You can send a money order. You can pay with crypto. I mean, I do give you options, but I wouldn't really worry about. Why worry about me? I'm not the one I'm the privacy guy. I will safeguard your identity. Has everyone actually ever complained that I, reveal their identity in any kind of a way ever? And I've been doing this for 5 years. That's never happened because I respect your identity. So I wouldn't worry about me. Okay. don't worry about me. I mean, worry about somebody else who doesn't care about your privacy. I worry about your privacy, so I'm careful what I collect. But why should I do your research for you? I'm not great. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Martin. Okay. Still have the privacy if I connect to your router on the same network for my. Will I still have the privacy if I connect the router to the same network for my work from home use? Remember, when you connect to work, the work system can check your computer. You ought to be. I mean, that's probably should be a different video in itself. But if I were you and if I were using a work system and you have to connect to their VPN using PPTP or one of those, you better be careful, because once you connect to a corporate network, your computer is actually completely visible. So you may want to do a virtual machine when you're connecting to your office computer. Use a virtual machine. That's something in my video. You probably should do that. That's my video from a couple of weeks ago. Virtual machine. Seriously. Goodbye, fish. Okay. I haven't met Mr. Nord yet. Can I buy eSIM? Can buy SIM card without ID and pay for my? It's very hard to hide a SIM card. IMEI, MZ. So I don't even try, but you can kind of make the data kind of be disinformation by aging the SIM cards. So buy SIM cards and maybe have an exchange party of SIM cards. But simply aging it, like my SIM cards are old now; they're over a year old. So they're harder to trace as they get older, because they're databases. It's hard to find out how you bought it. So made a data. Yes, Sam Gold. You can trust Mr. Google and Mr. Facebook. Yes, John Dow. That's funny. It's something. Can we trust you, Rob? Can we trust you with a VPN? I don't know if we can trust this Brax me, so I'll just stay on Facebook. It's like, fuck. Oh my gosh. Somebody does evil things and then you say, well, I guess they're big, so they must be trustworthy. It's like, oh my gosh. Discord safe, Zuck, no. By the way, why are you on Discord? What is so special about Discord? Is Discord offering you any kind of security? Nothing. Any kind of safety? Nothing. Any kind of privacy? Nothing. So what is Discord? Do you offer email servers? Not yet, Martin. I've been, I've been out of time. I wanted to create a service to allow a VPS service for email, so that I can just set it up for you, and then all you have to do is use it. But it's been hard to do this. It takes so much. If I do a project and I don't get a lot of buyers for it, then it may take more time to do it if I don't really think it through. So it's got to be like a formula that's easy to maintain. Otherwise, it's very, very difficult. Okay, so 1328, 1228. What is the significance of that, Starlight? How are you doing, Starlight? How are you doing, my friend? So anyway, we are. Oh, it's 1228 where you are. It's 9:28 here. Okay, so we're running out of time, so I only have a couple of minutes. So Discord is mainly used for chatting with people, especially when playing video games. Yes, that's what it's for. But it's, why do people ask me, oh, you should use Discord? Talk to me on Discord. It's like, suck. Hell no. So, okay, anyway. So, by the way, if you have some sometimes I don't know what topics are popular or what interests you, and apparently my last topic on sensors is not that interesting. It was interesting to me, but I guess it's not that interesting to you. So I'll be happy to do videos on what interests you if you have suggestions, and I'm happy to listen to if I'm going kind of the wrong way. So please put it in the comments here or in comments in not in the live one, but in some of the other videos. And then I'm certainly open to advice on what to talk about. Obviously, I'm not a know-it-all. I don't know everything, and certain things that I talk about, I may not have experimented with myself because I don't have time to try it. So I deduce it by clues that that come from a factual source. So I'll deduce that, and some people say, well, have you actually tried tracking what the phone does using something like MITM proxy or a tool like that to actually spot what happens on the phone? And you need to have a lot of time to do that. And anyone who knows how to make viruses, malware, knows how you can trick it so that you act in quiet mode, and you have to be stealthy because somebody could be tracking your traffic. Somebody said, well, I didn't see any traffic relating to Wi-Fi probes that report the router MAC addresses that track my location. And seriously, folks, that is the database. A hacker, Ravi Shankar, actually broke into the Google database of locations with MAC routers. And obviously that is in the API. It's published by Google on the geolocation API. That's how they connect the data. And they actually said publicly how they do it, how they changed from Street View car to this new way. And I found those documents where they actually discussed it. So somebody says, well, how do you know that the phone is actually doing this? Because they said so. They said so. So, and anyone who's had a Google phone will realize that your phone battery doubles. I don't. This is my G7 Play, which is my daily driver, and this phone, I charge only once every 2 days, sometimes 2.5 days. 2 days, 2.5 days on a standard G7. Okay, this is not a G7 Power. This is a standard G7 Play, and it lasts 2 days. Why? Because all the zucking tracking from Google is not sending data and telemetry to Google. So it actually is working. So somebody will say, well, I don't know if what you're saying is true. Well, let's deduce it. What the zuck is it doing then? Half the time. What the zuck is it doing when some people have already checked, scientifically that this thing emits RF and receives RF even in airplane mode. So what the zuck is happening? And you're telling me, well, I can't prove it, therefore it's safe. No. I can deduce it from what they've said in the past, just like Facebook said in their EULA that they track MAC addresses. And they said it, kind of in a nonchalant way that, oh yeah, we track MAC addresses. And nobody reacts to that. And I said, why are you tracking MAC addresses? And that is the kind of stuff that I react to because I understand what they can be used for. Okay, so anyway, guys, thank you for watching. And we went 3 minutes over here. Are there any compatible VPN apps for PinePhone or Librem 5? Yes, it comes with Network Manager OpenVPN. Yeah, you can load OpenVPN. Network Manager is built into all of those, which is connects to OpenVPN. So you can load OpenVPN on Linux, which is the same VPN software on every device. Okay, unless you want to load like WireGuard. So okay, thank you guys. Please visit on Brax.me and yeah, get your Google phone. Don't get contact traced. Get Let's shut these entities down. Stop them from doing what they're doing. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you for watching. And I don't really work on the weekend, so I try to keep myself relaxed. So try not to expect a response over the weekend. I tend to slow down. on Saturday and Sunday. So then I'll get heavy back on it on Monday if I don't respond to you. Okay? Thank you so much for watching. Have a good night or good morning to some of you. Bye bye.